I'm Paul Edwards, author of the Mourners Woods books, and first and foremost, a monster kid. Tonight, I'm here with our friend Biollante because I'm going to watch Godzilla vs. Biollante from 1989. This film is sort of the black sheep of the Heisei series of Godzilla films, the second series of Godzilla films. Kind of like Godzilla's Revenge was the black sheep of the original Showa series of Godzilla films. What happened was this. In the previous film, The Return of Godzilla, released here in the US and Canada as Godzilla in 1985, they rebooted the Godzilla franchise. They ignored every Godzilla film except for the original 1954 one. And Godzilla returned and trampled Tokyo. He fought a high-tech war machine called the Super X and defeated it, and then ultimately was defeated by mankind when we lured him to an active volcano at Mount Mahara, and Godzilla tumbled into the live volcano and sank into molten lava, seemingly destroyed for good. So in true monster fashion, Godzilla came back a couple of years later, and it turned out that the molten lava hadn't incinerated him, it had only entombed him. And now terrorists have planted bombs on the side of Mount Mahara and are threatening to set off the bombs and release Godzilla if their demands are not met. Okay, the main story, though, in Godzilla vs. Biollante deals with the creation of the plant monster Biollante. This script is very convoluted. It was the result, believe it or not, of a contest. Toho Studios held a contest and had the public submit suggested scripts for the next Godzilla film. And the winner was this script written by a dentist who extrapolated a fear about his young adult daughter dying and came up with a script where a biotech disaster combines DNA from a scientist's daughter, a plant, and Godzilla cells. And the result is a chimera, a freakish combination of these things called Biollante. Biollante first takes form as a gigantic rose, then later takes a more animate and hostile form as the boss Biollante, which we're going to take a look at in a couple of minutes. So this was a brand new monster. And Toho Studios felt that, they had nothing to lose by soliciting public suggestions for a script because Return of Godzilla hadn't been anywhere near the success they thought it was going to be. So they just thought they'd see if anyone in the public could come up with an idea. Well, I could have told them not to do that. The subsequent Godzilla movie, the one right after this, you'll notice they started bringing back big monsters from the old days, King Ghidorah, and then Mothra, and then Mechagodzilla. They started playing it very safe after this movie and brought back established, well-known monsters. This film also brought us a completely unnecessary recurring character, Miki Sagusa, played by Megumi Odaka. In this film, she's a teenage psychic who has psychic visions of Godzilla and also has a psychic connection to Biollante. Miki Sagusa would stay in all the rest of this series of Godzilla films. She would keep coming back. They would find things for her to do in all of the subsequent Godzilla movies in this series, all the way up to Godzilla vs. Destroyer. I don't know why. Nobody asked for this. She wasn't bad. She was fine. But there was no reason to have a recurring teenage girl and then young woman who keeps coming up in all these Godzilla adventures. It's just completely unnecessary. And by the way, Megumi Odaka did appear in other things, but these Godzilla movies were by far the most successful thing she was ever in. This is easily what she's best known for. So Biollante's fight with Godzilla, well, two fights with Godzilla, were fairly short. They weren't bad, but they were fairly short. The first fight Godzilla has against the gigantic rose, it was already doomed to not go very far because the rose was planted in place. It couldn't get up and move anywhere. So it had a few tricks that it could pull, but ultimately Godzilla torched it, and that was that. The second Biollante, the final form Biollante, could move and was a much more formidable opponent for Godzilla. And Biollante set the precedent for all of the other monsters that would come in the Heisei series, because Biollante was a monster that transformed, changed shape during the course of the movie. And Biollante was a monster that used ranged weapons. All of the Heisei series monsters from here on, they all changed form somewhere during the movie. Like King Ghidorah turned into Mecha King Ghidorah. Rodan turned into Fire Rodan. Mothra and Patra turned from their larval forms to their flying forms. All of the Heisei monsters, almost all of the Heisei monsters, transformed from one stage to another stage. Destroyer did too. And another thing that the Heisei monsters were known for was just standing there and firing energy weapons at each other. In the old 60s and 70s Godzilla movies, the monsters would tackle and wrestle each other. And it was a real hands-on battle every time that they clashed. In the Heisei movies, they tended to just have the monsters stand facing each other and shoot lasers and death rays and projectiles at each other. And visually, it looked good, but it wasn't very exciting because the half of the time when the monsters were fighting, they were just standing there. And, all you were seeing in terms of action was the optics that were added in afterwards. So I was really not a fan of the way that the Heisei series handled their monster battles. This script was incredibly complicated. Basically, it involved an American biotech company, Biomajor, Middle Eastern country called Saradia, some terrorists, some spies, corporate espionage, and going back and forth with efforts by one group to get hold of the Godzilla cells to experiment on, and then another group would try to steal the Godzilla cells from them. You'd think that whenever Godzilla ravages a city, he'd be leaving plenty of cell tissue behind. You'd think there would be plenty of this. Nobody would have to fight over it. But there you have it. All right, pardon the splice. We had a little technical problem. I reached back to get Biollante, and one of her legs came off. So she's back together now, though. So this is a Biollante toy from the time that the movie came out, and so it's pretty old. The individual neck and mouth pieces do all move separately. So that's pretty good. The main head does not move, though. She used to roar, but she's out of juice now. And I will say that I like the fact that they made a female monster. I don't know why kaiju movies are so androcentric. Why did the giant monsters all have to be male? Logically, at least half of them should be female, right? Okay, Mothra's female, but a whole lot of them are not. So I was glad to see another female monster. And Biollante has not yet returned in another Godzilla film, but I have a feeling she'll be back someday. Listen, if you're a fan of classic monsters and vintage horror, check out my book series, the Mourners Woods books. I'm self-published on Amazon. My name again is Paul Edwards. Thanks for letting me talk to you about Godzilla versus Biollante. I'll meet you in Mourners Woods.